and for the excellent decorations. Oh my goodness, can we give a hand for the decorators? These are quite fantastic, even though I keep thinking that's a human. Just out of the corner of my eye, I'm like, oh. Anyways, I'm Laura. Welcome to Brazos Bookstore. We are Houston's oldest independent bookstore. We've been around since 1974. Still standing. We do tons and tons of events all year long. Of course, we are winding down a little bit before the holidays, but we are so excited to have you all here and sharing some spooky stories. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to your fearless leader. All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Ellen Seaton. I am with WIBLA. I just want to thank Brazos Books and Houston Writers Guild for joining me in my annual madness of loving all things spooky and skeleton. Really appreciate getting the affirmation for that. One thing, quiet your phones. Now, I know there's a baseball game going on somewhere tonight, I've heard. So if you need to occasionally look at your phone to see, what's going on. If they just hit a home run, don't yell. Just be happy to yourself. Tell us when it's over. If they, But I'm also hoping that this will go till 8 o'clock, and everybody will have plenty of time to either get home before all the drunk sports fans hit the road, or you'll have time to get to your favorite sports bar to watch the end. It could go either way. There are back in the corner, there is some water if you need some. There are also people who brought some cards and such. Some of the writers did. I was going to and forgot, so you just have to remember I'm Ellen. Now, as part of WIBLA, I'm going to introduce that for a little bit. WIBLA's been around for over a quarter of a century. Thank you. Enabling women to explore creativity. WIBLA is Women in the Visual and Literary Arts, so we have both visual artists and literary artists. We infuse our community with creativity every chance we get, and promote our work in the marketplace, such as this. And December 3rd, oh mighty Leader Melody, we have the opening of the reception for our
biennial collaboration. The theme this year is reflection.
At Lee College, and writers and artists were paired up, so it's just a wonderful show. And I'm not only saying that because I'm in it, but a lot of other wonderful people are too. And I've seen some of the art, and I'm just flummoxed.
And it's family friendly. I've seen all the art too, and the writings. So.
All right, I think that's all I need to say. I would like to turn this over to Fern so she can tell us who she is and what she's up to.
Oh Lord, no, I'm not going to tell you what I'm up to. No, those secrets stay in-house. So I'm Fern Brady. I am the current head of the Houston Writers Guild. It is a pleasure for us to collaborate with women in the visual and literary arts. And we are collaborating in many ways now. So it's really awesome to see that grow. The Houston Writers Guild, for those of you who don't know, has been around since 1997. I think that's the correct date. And we basically do all kinds of programs for authors. Our focus is to help authors improve their writing craft, build exciting careers in a beautiful collaborative community. And that is our mission statement. And I memorized it just for this. So we have with us tonight also our critique group director. She'll talk to you more about it, and she has some cards. So if you guys are looking for places to get critique, Brenda is your lady. And so with that said, and I'm gonna go ahead and begin our evening by introducing our first speaker. Gabrielle Langley will be sharing with us her story. Gabrielle, please give her a hand.
Thank you all. I'm thrilled to be here. I am a poet. I have 2 ghost poems that I'm going to read. The first one, it was written for my brother who's here this evening. He's that handsome guy sitting right there with a gorgeous woman who's my sister-in-law. And we have always been, my brother and I grew up in what we believed was a haunted house, and we always loved ghosts, and and still love ghosts. And we used to put together seances, and I will confess that we faked some of our seances in order to frighten our friends. This poem is about that. Seance with lost objects. A good seance is the art of illusion. A few rusty nails and a mockingbird feather. Draping a table with black damask cloth, dimming the light to a single candle. During the setup, our old calico, Cheshire, meanders through, stepping on the Ouija board. Our black cat, Bastet, lounges, amber-eyed, on the ancient black velvet pillow, tasseled with gold. With bendy, ink-dipped pipe cleaners and a web of invisible thread, we rig tarantulas, gorgon spiders crawling from under the table at just the right moment. Inside the loosely latched closet, a ribboned cheesecloth ghost is waiting. More monofilament, long enough to reach our hands, anchored to a large nail, hidden beneath a chair cushion that exhales sawdust. And found, here is the broken necklace. It will slither its way up to the sepia-toned, rose-lipped bride who is trapped in an oval photo, pressed behind glass, forever bound in a rosewood frame, while a black music box winds itself, unfurls a ballerina who is dancing for her life. Arabesques and pirouettes to Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique, a doll's head rises, bobbing in the cold air. Harpsichord sounds in the distance. The lights will flicker on and off to the sound of crashing plates, a poltergeist cabal. Our guests will never know about the roll of clear fishing line, an old pair of scissors, a bolt, a forgotten tool, or the yowls of two house cats tussling over a mockingbird feather. And the second poem is called the Vilas. The Vilas is a German word for a type of ghost. The singular is a vila, and a vila in Northern European folklore is a ghost of a young woman who is betrayed by her lover. The Vilas. Blue violets, blooming from their fingertips, forgotten. Nocturnes. The old women drinking schnapps. The soldiers laughing when a girl is jilted. There is a tombstone, a white ballet. There is a sky of Prussian blue, waiting, weeping, tree roots tangled in their hair, the women wearing pale gauze. The women wearing pale gauze, tree roots tangled in their hair, waiting, weeping. There is a sky of Prussian blue, a white ballet. There is a tombstone when a girl is jilted. the soldiers laughing, drinking schnapps, the old women forgotten, nocturnes blooming from their fingertips, blue violets. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. You know, Gabrielle and I have something in common is social work, and we have both, well, many years ago, I had, and she has a specialty of working with gerontology. And so I said to her now, I are one, so if I need help, I knew who to call.
You can call.
All right, our next reader will be Sabina Gartler. What? Yes.
Hello, my name is Sabina Gartler. I wrote mostly flash fiction, usually with some sort of supernatural element, so this was right up my alley. I also put out a monthly online zine called That Plant Fucker. So, and I have cards back there. So, you know, it's got a little QR code so you can sign up for the monthly zine. My story is entitled Halloween Follies. This night, as I stroked my growing belly and looked at the softly snoring figure of my husband in the bed next to me, and I wondered at the events that made me the luckiest young lady in Springfield. The brocade drapery was pulled close to keep the street lamplight out of the parlor. A fire sputtered and popped, adding to the illumination of the candles set on every surface. I glanced at the oval mirror reflecting the firelight. It wasn't the first time I'd played the magic mirror game on All Hallows Eve. Each year since I was 13, I'd peel the apple, say the magic words, and look into the mirror to see my future husband. Each year the mirror was empty. I don't want to play this game again tonight. I just want to go bob for apples, I told Lottie as she handed me the leather-bound book. I never see anyone in the mirror. I think my fate is single blessedness. Don't be defeatist, Molly. Besides, I found a better way to play the game. Most of the girls at the Howard School for Young Ladies worshipped Halloween's gaiety and mystery. I came to despise it. The empty mirror, the foreboding tarot, they only served to remind me that I was the only one in class without a beau. Was the mirror true? A life of hollow spinsterhood? Turn to page 257, Lottie commanded, pointing at the oddly bound book. I dutifully sought the required page. I stared at Lottie, waiting for further instruction. Wait before you read the text. I need to ready the mirror, she said while I waited with the open book in my hands. We have to cover the mirror while you read the incantation, and then remove the cover to let the spirit through. What sort of spirit? I asked. Don't ask silly questions. It's Halloween. Any sort of spirit works, Lottie replied. You want to see your future husband, yes? I almost said no to the whole game. I was taught the living should fear spirits, not invite them for punch in the parlor. Yet I held my tongue. 4 years of Halloween divination had only produced giggles and the occasional startled shudder. Why should this year have been any different? Start reading now, Lottie commanded. Advoco te, demonium, minuscularum, functionariorium, imple me tua sancta ordinaria, igne nocumento tuo, inardesco, inimicos meos, voluntatem suam diriu ut defaltum vincere. The tablecloth flew off the mirror in one focused pull. I looked in the mirror. Nothing. I turned to put the Latin book on the side table. The book dropped from my hands as I sought to use them to steady myself before the demon figure that had appeared behind me. I found no chair or table to grasp, so my posterior landed on the wool rug with a tiny bounce. Hello, the demon greeted Lottie and me with a raised hand. Hello, I responded out of manners and habit. I was still on the floor. Lottie just blinked. I can see you didn't expect me. Let me explain. My name is Xylus. That spell you recited? was one to summon me. So I'm very grateful for the passage out of hell. How do you speak English? I asked as more germane questions evaded me. I learned in hell. We have a lot of Americans in hell. You have horns. Yes. And red skin, I said. Funny thing, think of it as a really bad sunburn. Lake of fire and all. Lottie was still silent. She had fainted. Your friend seems to need some help, Zyla said as he picked Lottie from the floor and laid her on the settee. Can I help you up? He reached out his hand after helping Lottie. What do you mean to do here? I asked, as if being upright again allowed me to find useful questions. Anything you want, he said. You summoned me, so I must do your bidding. Walk me home? As you bid. Xylus is just a law clerk now, but I have no doubt his ambition and demonic spitefulness will serve him well to ascend the hierarchy of Watson, Wilson, and Wallace. One day it'll be Watson, Wallace, and Silas.
And Sabina does one mean newsletter for Whitla. Thank you for that too. Our next reader is Sandi Stromberg.
I'm sorry, I've just come as myself tonight. Sometimes that's as scary as it gets. So, I have two poems. The first one was written in response to an Ingmar Bergman film, Persona. And I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's basically the story of these two women who are in this isolated cottage on the Swedish coast. One is an opera singer who has lost her voice, and the other is the nurse gone to take care of her. And it's kind of a very subtle power struggle between the two women. I watched it over and over again because when there's certain endings to movies you're not sure of, and I kept thinking every time I saw it, I would finally figure it out. So instead I wrote the poem. Shades of silence and seduction. I am the camera's eye, watching two women, one mute, one hungry to be heard, mask in place. When they touch, my own flesh burns. I feel the attraction, intimacy, followed by denial. Blood racing near the surface draws the vampire's lips. Around them, austere lines. A Swedish cottage gives way to the jagged silhouette of rocks, like razor blades. The sea's surface, shards of broken glass. Alternating shades of silence and seduction dance. Rules of conduct as rigid and fragile as the masks they wear, until shadows of each other, their faces merge monstrous across the screen, one impaled on the other, sacrificial lamb on spiked fence. And the other one is the first time I was raised in the Midwest, and I went out to the oil fields of Pennsylvania to visit my college boyfriend. And I had never been in an oil field before, so I had no idea about what pump jacks were. Is there anyone here who doesn't know what a pump jack is? No? Okay, it's what pumps the well. You see them, they're kind of like they do this, okay? The other thing is that when I was 11 years old, my mother wouldn't let me watch anything that was scary. So of course, I snuck down the street and spent the night with a girlfriend so I could watch Boris Karloff in The Mummy. I never got over that film. So. Night of the Pump Jacks. And this is what's called a pantoum. So you're going to hear a lot of repetition. There's a certain pattern of repetition that goes through the poem. Night of the Pump Jacks. The lamppost casts shadows through swaying trees. My eyes won't close in this unfamiliar room. Dark dressers, bedside tables, a trunk or two, like a movie scene from an Egyptian tomb. My ears won't close in this unfamiliar room where metal scrapes and clunks reverberates like echoes in a pillaged Egyptian tomb. I curl under covers, afraid of whom I do not know. Metal scrapes metal with a screaming screech. Is it the vengeful cry of an unchained spirit? I burrow to hide from whom I do not know, alone in this eerie, secluded room. Is it the vengeful cry of an unchained spirit? I shiver, checking windows, closed and locked, alone in this eerie, secluded room. The crank and clank continue their grating sound. Windows closed and firmly locked, I shiver. No one will know to come if a spirit enters. The crank and clank resound, resound, resound. Has the mummy risen to take its due? No one will come if a spirit enters this room of dark dressers, a trunk or two. Has the mummy risen to take its due as the lamppost casts shadows through swaying trees?
Thank you so much, Sandy. I also like the idea is, since we're all writers, if you don't like the ending, you just rewrite your own story. All right, and next up, my favorite person, Margo Stutts Toombs, writer, poet, thespian. I lose track of all the titles, so.
You're sweet.
Yes, no pressure.
Idiot.
Haikuist.
Okay, my roommate helped me find this make this costume. This is flowing onto the floor, so I'm going to try to use it a little bit later. The true meaning of boo, circa 2001. Some of this story is true. This is what I remember. I performed an open mic set at the Laugh Stop Comedy Club in Houston. My friends and family laughed at all of my jokes and took photographs with flash cameras, paparazzi style. All of this laughter and attention gave me a false sense of talent and puffed up my chest as high as a Malaysian sarama chicken at a foul beauty pageant. I'll give you a second for that. A day or two later, one of my audience friends invited me to be the opening act for her husband, an Elvis impersonator, at a redneck sports bar. In hindsight, I should have investigated the venue before chirping, "Yes, of course." 2, maybe 3 weeks later, I was on stage at that chaotic sports bar, dark and lousy with the smell of sweat and beer. It was an odd rectangular room with the stage at one end and large TV screens at the other, separated by a bar and a few drunks. The group from the Laugh Stop came to the watering hole to support me, but this time colleagues and pals from high school were there too. Plenty of folk to witness my humiliation. I thought my performance was progressing adequately until I heard a lone voice from the back of the room. "Boo! It was a knife in my gut. I couldn't breathe. I turned to my partner on stage. Did somebody say boo? Again, that hateful word exploded from the back of that hot, sticky saloon. Boo! My inflated ego was smashed flat with that single, simple syllable by a monster lounging in the shadows, sucking on his long neck brew. My fans patted me on the back and expressed their condolences, then hurried out to the parking lot to escape the awkward situation and the obligation to cheer me up. I moved my car out of sight and waited for my tormentor. He stumbled out at 1 a.m. I followed him to his home in a secluded area outside of Houston. Once I got his address, I found his name and phone number. I followed him to work. I took photos of him doing embarrassing things with my super telephoto lens. I posted them around town, old school style. I called him from payphones when I could find them, late at night or early in the morning, and hung up. After a few months, I started saying, boo, before hanging up. Making him pay became my mission. It gave me a reason to get out of bed. All of my pain and disappointment went into the bag of boo. My friends became weary of my obsession, and one by one, they disappeared. I was alone. All I had left was hate. Photos and phone calls were not enough to feed my hunger. I started hiding in the woods near his home until I could hear him snoring through his open bedroom window. Then I sat under that window and gently whispered, boo, boo. I don't remember how long this went on. His hair turned gray. He became thin and nervous. I was miserable too, but I couldn't stop. I could not remember how to have a life without Boo Boy. My life dragged on until one night I got up the courage to go inside and beg for forgiveness and release from this curse. But he shot me. I didn't want to die with a heart full of venom. I wanted relief for him and me. But it's too late. Now I have to sit under this window from dusk till dawn chanting. I can feel my memories fading and my language leaving. Soon I will be reduced to those two wretched phonemes. Ba, ooh.
Now you see what I mean. Yeah. All right, our next reader is Brenda Preuss, and she is going to tell us about critique groups for the Houston Writers Guild, as well as read.
Oh my gosh, so many things.
Yes.
And get my skirt right. Sorry. Okay. So I'm the director of the critique groups, new for the Houston Writers Guild. If you've been thinking about joining a critique group, I'm your person. We just started 3 new ones. They need people. So if you're interested, or if you want one in your neighborhood, I'll help you start one. My cards are on the table and my bookmark. I did not make that sound happen. Wouldn't it be cool if I did? Is that short enough?
Yep. Yes.
I'm going to read a piece from my book, Shameless Plug, The Care and Feeding of a Teacher by Brenda Preuss, which is in alphabetical order. So the last one, called Zombies, which I have edited to 5 minutes. Whew. Zombies. After subbing for only 3.5 days in my new post-retirement part-time job at 3 different high schools and 1 middle school, I am thinking several thoughts. What if teachers ran the school world? What would teachers teach if they could teach anything? What if bosses were like the ideal proud parents that encouraged and supported teachers' choices? What if kids could choose what they wanted to learn? And teachers were like proud parents that encouraged and supported their students' choices. In 11th grade, I took a class called Consumer Education, a home ec class I found out later. I had to do a home project, which would nowadays be called independent study. I could do my project on anything I wanted. I chose college. I knew absolutely nothing about college. It was during my preparation of this project, without internet, without Google, without computers at all, I was able to find the college I would attend, my major, and scholarship money that would last me 3 semesters. My project met my needs and my teacher supported me. No technology whatsoever. It changed my life. Just think of the possibilities with technology in place. Now school projects seem to be boring, or too hard because they're boring. I subbed in a high school business class for a day. The students were instructed to work on their portfolios. That sounds fun. Nope, it was an Excel spreadsheet. They all looked alike except for the cover page where a few students got creative with color and design. The same thing. They were exactly the same. Hello. It's good. I taught middle school. I'm okay with all this. Throw some paper at me. Oh my gosh. Okay, where was I? Yeah, I lost my place. They were exactly the same thing. I felt bored. They were easy to grade for sure, but there was no original thought, creativity, or fun. They could easily copy and paste the entire project. No wonder they were done and their eyes were glazed over. No wonder they looked like zombies with their eyes focused on their electronic devices. They were so very bored. The untapped human resources lay trapped there beneath the rock-solid wall of system requirements and standardized testing. Stepford kids. Stepford teachers. They're not perfect, though, like the Stepford wives in the movies. They're just dead inside. Bored, boredom, boring. Everyone's eyes were glazed over in the sea of exhausted, testing weak soldiers. They were spent. They needed to laugh and play and create. They needed recess. I told them if they had nothing else to do, they should write a letter to their grandma. Then at least that started a conversation that wasn't cut and paste. My grandma's dead. My grandma's mean. My grandma lives with us. I don't need to write her a letter. My grandma hates me. Got that glazed look out of their eyes for a moment anyway. I like chatting with them, especially the seniors. I love hearing their plans for college. If they didn't have plans for college, I asked them why. Some of them were truly lost. I wanted to help and I tried. Why don't you look up some colleges there on your laptop? Let me know what you find. I really want to know. What's even more disturbing than observing this zombie thing in high schools is what I'm hearing from my daughter about my 2nd grade granddaughter and my kindergarten grandson. The 2nd grader gets in trouble for reading at school. Reading. My daughter called her bookworm thug. The 5-year-old doesn't even want to go to school anymore. They're not even testing yet. Standardized state testing starts in 3rd grade, and they're already bored and stressed in kinder and 2nd. At home, they're like sponges. They love to learn about everything. They ask a million questions, and they know just tons of facts. My 8-year-old granddaughter is a walking encyclopedia of knowledge on animals and bugs and clouds. The kindergartner loves to read too, but when his teacher gives him 5 worksheets for homework, he does not have time to read or play or do anything. The school is sucking the life out of my kids, my daughter complains. She's seriously researching unschooling. You know what? I support her. Don't get me wrong, I don't want teachers to lose their jobs. or public schools to close down. I just want to see the light come back on in the eyes of the teachers and the kids. We really are having a zombie apocalypse. It's at school, and I'm scared.
Yeah. Now, I wish I had listened to more at school. Our next reader is going to be my cohort in most crimes. Someone I can always call and say, hey, let's do this. And now she's starting to do the same to me. So that is Fern Brady.
I'm always willing to jump into some, fun stuff. So, my friends, I'm going to read you a little snippet of Thyrane. He is the one who forged the Intergalactic Alliance, for which my universe was created, the universe of my book. It all takes place on planet Jorn. And by the way, that planet is really just around the corner from us. We're part of Thyrane's galactic wall, we just don't really know it yet. Thyrane lay on the stone floor, wishing he'd stayed on planet Jorn. He would have been celebrating Defender's Day yesterday, instead of climbing to this cave on planet Nordalswine's smallest moon in the middle of torrential rainstorm, only to find it empty. He could have been showing off his warrior skills at the tournaments and drinking to the fallen heroes of the wars of yore, a glorious lady on each arm. Instead, he'd heeded Rajin Horsef about the magic sword in the enchanted cave that could only be found on Defender's Day. The great master claimed the weapon would make the difference in their victory or defeat in the coming Calvern-Scene incursion, whatever that was. He'd never known a Rajin to have a mean kind of sense of humor, least of all Horsef. The sound of claws upon hard stone floors brought him to alertness. Rushing to his feet, he drew out his trusty sullen from its holster under his arm. He spun about, scanning the area for the creature. A low, rumbling chuckle filled his ears. "Your weapon will avail you nothing," a throaty voice taunted him. Spinning to his left, from whence the sound had come, he froze. Eyes wide, Thyrane took in the dragon, floating before him. It was not flesh and blood. Rather, the shape of it flitted and swirled in a red, translucent mist. The body of the beast trailed away with only the massive dragon head towering over him inches from his face. "What are you?" Thyrane asked. "Who wants to know?" the disembodied dragon asked. "I'm Thyrane of House Drav, regent of planet Jorn," Thyrane introduced himself, putting away his sullen and bowing. The energy weapon would be useless against this foe. "I'm Marama," the dragon answered. "What kind of dragon are you? I've never seen one that was made of mist." Another chuckle rumbled through the cave. "Why are you here, Thyrane of House Drav?" "I was sent by Rajin Horsef to seek a sword, though I've never known him to be cruel." Thyrane gestured with his hand at the barren cave. Something in the dragon's emerald eyes flickered. Thyrane was uncertain what it meant, but he did not feel scared. "Follow me," the mist dragon instructed. It turned in a fluid serpentine motion towards the back wall of the cave. Thyrane began to follow, then stopped as the creature seeped into the solid stone at the back. "Well, are you coming?" the voice beckoned. Moving cautiously forward, Thyrane made his way to what had looked, even in the bright light of his head torch the night before, as solid wall. Even now, no opening was visible. Then there, just to the left, the red mist dragon floated along a narrow, hidden path. Thyrane followed it as it wound around several corners. Then the path opened up into a wider cavern than the one at the entrance. It was illuminated by fluorescent worm-like creatures which slithered about on the floors and ceilings. Shock stopped Thyrane, for the whole space lay littered with the charred remains of human skeletons. Cold sweat of fear at having fallen into the dragon's trap dripped down his back. But then his eyes found at the far end a large boulder with the blade of a massive sword embedded into its solid rock. The dragon mist seeped into the sword. Thirain approached. When he stood before it, the voice of the dragon spoke again. If you're worthy, you may draw me out. Then I will help you defeat your enemies. But be warned, if your heart is not pure and you fail to pull the sword, I shall consume you. Coming to stand as close to the sword and the stone as possible, Thirain took in the beauty of the weapon. The hilt gleamed in a white pearlescence reminiscent of mother of pearl. The handguard in a bright silver stretched out in the shape of massive dragon wings. The portion of the blade protruding from the stone shone with a mirror-like surface. The dragon's warning repeated in his mind. The evidence of other failed attempts scattered at his feet. Was he worthy? Surely Rajin Horsef wouldn't have sent him here if he were not, right? For a moment he hesitated. Then he shook his doubts off and wrapped confident hands about the weapon's pommel. He gave a strong pull. The blade came forth from the stone with bright blue sparks. As he held it aloft, he let his eyes take in the full-length, double-edged weapon. The steel held a tenuously red hue. So you're the one I've been waiting for, the voice of the dragon said. Will you tell me now what you are? Thirain asked, though he knew the answer. He'd believed it a silly legend, unable to be factual, yet clearly the story he'd so often heard tell as a child, read various versions of in books, was in fact truth. I am Marama, the dragon that sacrificed her heart to forge this sword. Only a destined king of pure heart may wield me. And so the legend was true. A dragon had given herself to form a weapon against which no power of darkness could stand. Go on, Marama said. Swing me, let us learn each other. Thirain swung the mighty sword with a two-handed grip. As it cut the air, the sound of a roar rent the stillness of the cave. It shocked Thirain, who looked about, seeking the monster it had come from. That was me, Marama clarified. Go on. He went through the motions of parrying and thrusting, blocking and slashing. Then he tested a one-handed swing. The blade moved fluidly with his body as if it were one with his arm, light as a feather. The terrifying roar echoing all around him each time. You have good form, Marama complimented him. He couldn't help the pleased smile on his face at the dragon's words. So, Thirain of House Draft, Marama said, what shall we do together? He thought about the vision he'd shared with Rajin Horsef. We're going to form an intergalactic alliance of planets for mutual defense and create a system of commerce and trade. The red mist seeped out of the weapon. The massive dragon head floated before him, its emerald eyes fixing him with a penetrating stare. And will you make yourself an emperor then? No, Thirain said, returning the dragon's stare with an earnest gaze. We shall build a free system where all planets are equal. What he took to be a smile wreathed itself across Marama's maw. Jagged teeth gleamed in the light of the cavern. A worthy goal, the dragon said. And for our final and amazing reader, Miss Ellen Seaton, who is the culprit of all of this and the owner of every skeleton you're sitting next to.
Yes, and all the skeletons would not have made it if Jim had not helped me pack them in the car. All right, I always like to write about new characters when I write these short stories. Hextally shows up for the holidays. There's a new monster in town, Willow said loudly to all of the Grim Reapers that gathered in the meeting room. This one is tricky and can hurt a mortal without leaving any scars. I've been watching her very carefully for some time. She's big. She feeds on the negativity that she finds. She moves around the bayous looking for potential victims. And you know the bayous run throughout every part of the city. Grim Reaper Bob, who sat in one of the cushiony chairs, that are soft enough to allow the reapers to sit down without making their bones sore. He asked, "Where did this monster come from?" Willow put her bony finger to her chin and said, "It is believed that she came up from the Gulf of Mexico. The growing pollution there has created fearsome monsters we are only beginning to recognize. Then, during Halloween, when the veil between the worlds is the thinnest, evil forces rise out of the water." "What does she look like and how big is she?" That was asked by Reaper Carolyn, who sat across from Bob. "Big," Willow continued. "She's a cross between a boa constrictor and electric eel with sharp piranha teeth. She's long and round and can jump great distances, so it looks as if she can fly. With all of the holiday shopping that'll start soon, there will be many potential targets for her to feed on. We need to find a way to get rid of her before the mortals start filling the streets. The winter holidays are supposed to make everyone cheerful, but most just wind up getting angry and frustrated. Some are filled with lots of sadness and grief, which really draws Hextally in." Bob, who used to work on a ranch before he died and became a reaper, asked, "Is this something I can lasso?" He was good with the sides, but his lasso remained his tool of choice. "Maybe," answered Willow. "However, it's going to take all of us to really trap her. I have an idea, but it will be tricky. Do you want to hear it?" Of course, all the reapers replied together. "There is a young woman named Shirley who just 2 weeks ago lost her husband because of a sudden heart attack. These two were true soulmates. His death left a gaping hole in her heart and soul. Anyway, she is in the habit of taking long walks along the bayou almost every evening. With her grief, she would make the perfect target for Hextally." Caroline sat forward in her chair. "So you mean our task will be to wait close by while she walks, and when Hextally shows up, we attack the monster before any harm can come to Shirley? What if we're not successful?" "That's the tricky part," Willow said. "Our mortal won't have any signs of physical damage, but Hextally can bite big chunks out of one's essence, one's soul and heart. This grieving woman's sorrow will never end. It will be impossible for her to find peace." "Well then, I vote we start this evening. The sooner we deal with this Hextally, the better," Bob said. "I'll bring my lasso and everyone else can bring their sides." Bob was eager to round up this monster. Later that evening, all of the Grim Reapers gathered along the bayou where Shirley typically strolled. Unseen by all of the mortals that were walking and jogging, they took positions in a line along the waterway and stood 2 or 3 deep, hoping that strength in numbers would provide a good defense. "Here comes Shirley," Willow shouted, "and I can see by the shadow that Hextally is moving in the water right alongside her. Get ready." As Shirley walked along, oblivious to all of the commotion about her, she was crying. Hextally noticed the Grim Reapers standing close by, but thought that maybe the Reapers knew something big that was about to happen that would kill many souls. She just wanted to take a bite out of this one mortal. Suddenly, Hextally rose out of the water, flying above the heads of the Grim Reapers and baring her sharp-pointed teeth as she stared down at Shirley. What Willow saw was a huge creature with red, beady eyes. The monster was without arms, but she didn't seem to need them. Hextally was headed straight for Shirley, her mouth open and sharp teeth ready for the fatal bite. Grim Reaper Bob used his lasso and caught the monster just behind her head and face. Bob pulled Hextally away from Shirley towards the ground. That gave all of the Reapers a chance to slice the monster up into at least 20 pieces. The monster let out a horrifying scream that could only be heard by those who were already dead. The burst of energy that swirled around knocked Shirley onto the ground. She thought maybe her crying had made her trip and fall. All the parts of Hextally seemed to take on a life of their own and slithered back into the dark, murky waters. The last piece to go was Hextally's head, although she continued to scream even after she was underwater. The Reaper stood there and watched as Shirley got up and continued on her walk. "We saved a soul tonight," Willow said softly to her fellow Reapers. "Also, the slashing we gave Hextally should keep her away for a while. But we must remember that at some point, all of her parts will merge back together. This monster may return before the holidays are over." Again, thanks to everyone for coming. This has been great. Let's do it again next year. Please, Brazos. And I hope the two staff from Brazos who have been with us this evening, I hope y'all get overtime for this. Let's see. I would like to ask for all the writers to remain so we can get a quick picture of everybody before we leave. Also, there are some cards and things over on the table. If people didn't bring cards, you can take a picture of our writers list right up there to follow up, or you can walk up to the writer and give them a compliment. Not all of us are introverts and won't run away, we're scared. Some of us will be really easy to engage in conversation. So thank you once again. Happy holidays, everybody.
And do be aware that we are filming, so it will be on the WIVLA YouTube
Yes.
soon, so that you can share it with others if you would like to, and enjoy each piece again. Thank you, guys.
I know.